Good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this 22nd day of November. Well, it is a cloudy day today here in Brisbane and it's only 21 degrees. It's still not bad. It is quite cloudy. Can't see past the valley probably today. But that's the weather, the way it is for today. 21 degrees and cloudy here in Brisbane. Once again, my name is Umesh Chandra. Once again, thank you so much for joining us right here on Australian Indian Radio with the daily news update. Well, today we will not have the daily India report. That's from Tuesday. So that goes across from Tuesday till Saturday. Well, right now, let's take a look at some of the local news. Then we'll talk about lots of functions and events that took place in the weekend. Of course, last night was that big music concert by the music guru, Diwakar Mothe, and his disciples. He has been planning that for a long time. Once it was all ready to go, then the COVID-19 restrictions hit, so that had to be changed at that time. And he also joined in with Tabla Maestro Dheeraj Shrestha and his students, and it was an amazing show. We will present a full show on that, but we will show you some glimpses as we go along. And of course, yesterday was the White Ribbons Ride for prevention of domestic violence, and that took place in Nanda. Tim and Caroline, they did a wonderful job there. And of course, yesterday was also the AGM for Radio 4EB, where they appoint the board of directors, etc. So a lot was happening in the weekend. Well, right now, let's get on with the news in this segment. Our very own Jim Chalmers, what is he saying? So he's saying that Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister, has been lying about the economy. Here's that report as reported to insiders.
Let me turn to something else the Prime Minister said this week on cost of living. He suggested that petrol prices, power prices, interest rates would all rise more under a Labor than a coalition government. Are you prepared for an election battle over cost of living?
Oh, too right we are, David. I would absolutely welcome that. I would be absolutely delighted to have an election about the cost of living and real wages going backwards, and the fact that the Prime Minister has been lying to Australians about the economy, and that has real consequences for working families. If he wants to have an election on the fact that petrol prices have gone up on average over the last year, something like $900 for an average family with an average car, at the same time as real wages have gone backwards $700 over the last year, then we say bring it on. Under the Morrison government, petrol prices are skyrocketing, real wages are going down, and working families are going backwards. And I think that should be central to an election about the economy, about living standards, and about the Prime Minister's failures on economic management.
There you go. That's our own Jim Chalmers, and on very strong, coming across very strong on those points of views. And of course, he's prepared. He said, bring it on, the election, and he's not worried on those issues, that he is really willing to take that on. Well, right now, let's go to Northern Territory, where the Chief Minister is encouraging Territorians to get vaccinated urgently. Now is the time.
It's been a long and difficult night for a lot of people, none more so than the residents of Binjari. As was reported last night, there were 9 positive cases detected from Binjari yesterday, following the testing blitz. There are 4 females, a 23-year-old, a 38-year-old, a 39-year-old and a 78-year-old. The 5 males are aged 17, 18, 21, 31 and 47. They are from different households. We think 6 in total. Their vaccination status has not been confirmed yet. The 78-year-old female was at Katherine Hospital with symptoms, and she was transported to Royal Darwin Hospital overnight. The other 8 cases have all been transported to the Centre for National Resilience overnight for monitoring and care. Some have existing health conditions. There have been no new positive cases in the Territory since last night's update. There are 3,005 tests processed in the Territory in the last 24 hours. The positive cases in Binjari are very concerning, but not surprising. As I flagged with you yesterday, this is something we were expecting based on the wastewater results. What's more concerning is the evidence of substantial mingling between households in Binjari, as well as mingling back and forth between Binjari and the nearby community of Rockall, which is about 130 residents. These communities have very strong personal and family connections. It probably helps to think of them more as one big household rather than a lot of different households. For these reasons, we do expect the numbers in Binjari and probably Rockall to increase, and they may increase by a lot. We have to be prepared for that. As you know, last night we took urgent action to escalate our response in these communities, immediately implementing a hard lockdown. That means residents of Binjari and Rockall no longer have the 5 reasons to leave their home. They can only leave for medical treatment in an emergency or if required by law. Yes, these are strong measures, but the threat to lives is extreme. An expanded rapid assessment team was deployed to Binjari and Rockall last night to help with the hard lockdown, begin the contact tracing work and provide as much support as possible to residents. This includes providing food and other essential items to residents. The effort undertaken by our teams last night and the cooperation of Binjari and Rockall communities was nothing short of phenomenal. I want to especially mention the Worley staff member Peter and his team who facilitated this last night. They were exceptional. Thank you. It's highly likely that more residents will be transferred to Howard Springs today, either as positive cases or close contacts. We've already identified 38 close contacts in Binjari, and that number will go up. Those 38 are being transferred now. I contacted the Prime Minister last night. We are grateful for the support of about 20 ADF personnel as well as army trucks to assist with the transfer of positive cases and close contacts and to support the communities. We are doing an assessment today of what extra resources we might need from the feds, and the Prime Minister is ready to help further. I thank him and the Australian Government for that. Exposure sites will be updated on the website as the contact tracing continues today. We'll also keep testing and doing vaccinations in Binjari and Rockall. We did 29 vaccinations in Rockall yesterday, 27 were first dose. I'll give you an update on wastewater now. Apart from Binjari, there is still positive wastewater in one Katherine catchment, the Bicentennial Road catchment. That's the area around Acacia Drive, McFarlane Primary, the police station, the industrial area. That's the area around the highway out of town, east of Katherine. It also includes the Walpurgis Town Camp. Given we have removed the positive cases identified in that area, it does concern us that we're still getting positive readings there. That means it is likely there is still a positive case or cases in that part of Katherine who have not come forward for testing. If you live in Katherine, particularly that part of Katherine, Katherine East, please get tested today. We only had 221 tests in Katherine.
So there you go. The call of the day is that come out, get tested and get vaccinated. And if you are in that area of Katherine, please do get tested. The matter is quite urgent, looking at the situation before and now. So it is very, very tough. But they're trying to get it under control, and that the ideal situation would be as many people to come out and get vaccinated as soon as possible. Well, right now, so we've seen the report from Jim Chalmers from Queensland. We went to Northern Territory. Right now, let's go to South Australia, where they are preparing to open up.
The Katsillas family from Seaton don't have COVID-19, but if they catch it, they'll be ready.
So here we go. So we've got the monitoring tablet here.
They've been shown one of 1,500 new at-home health kits, complete with an oxygen probe and thermometer. They'll be supplied to COVID-positive patients while they rest and recover at home once the state reopens.
This information is then fed back into our systems at SA Health so we can monitor you closely in the home.
The Health Check SA app won't just monitor symptoms, it'll also track people's location to ensure they're staying put. If home patients have any health concerns, they'll be able to call a 24-hour hotline.
That's the key lessons we've really taken on board from Interstate, is needing to have that phone support available so that people don't unnecessarily call out an ambulance, for instance, or attend an emergency department.
Reducing pressure on the already strained health system once Delta does enter SA is high on the government's agenda. About 5% of all positive cases will need to go to hospital. The government's invested in 400 new beds to cope with demand.
And about half of those will already be in place next week.
But it's unlikely SA will have met its 80% double-dose vaccine target by Tuesday's reopening, and some areas are lagging behind.
More needs to be done to ensure that those communities are brought up to pace when it comes to vaccination.
It's full steam ahead for the cruising industry, with Adelaide's first ship of the season sailing into Outer Harbour this morning.
This is a great day, expedition cruising back, and it's an important step as South Australia opens up.
15,000 people have registered to enter SA from Tuesday. Sarah Tmevska, ABC.
So there you go. South Australia is now open. Well, looking at the cruise liners coming in, that is good sign. But as we all know that, the threat of numbers increasing is quite evident, and that is going to happen as it normally does when people start travelling around. But how would the health departments and the authorities deal with that is the big question. Now that the very, very terrible news about that fire that killed 4. Here's that report.
It's just one of those horror incidents which people just hope never happen, and it affects all the firefighters and the police here as much as anyone. When they arrived, they were called to this street at about 1 o'clock this morning, and when they arrived, this house behind me was already fully engulfed with flames. The garage roof has collapsed, and the fire inside was so intense that they couldn't actually get inside to fight it. They had to do their work from outside. We're told that when they were on their way here, so in the trucks heading out to this street, they were told that there were children inside, and while they always say they do their best and approach things in the same way, some of the firefighters we've heard from did say that it added an extra element to the feeling around the site last night. The mother and the father and an 8-year-old boy did manage to escape the fire. They were outside when firefighters arrived, and there's a big investigation going here today just to establish exactly what happened and what caused this blaze. But let's take a listen to some of the authorities speaking earlier.
You were presented with a house that was very well alight, and fire had already broken through the roof and was already coming out the front door, and we were made aware of 3 people that had escaped the fire. Because of the intensity of the fire, it was very difficult for our crews to be able to initially make access, and with the roof already being compromised and the tiles collapsing, it was unsafe for our members to be able to proceed initially with an internal attack. Because of the roof collapse, it has made it difficult in terms of identifying the cause early on, and also being able to identify the location of the 4 deceased children.
It is a terrible set of circumstances, and one that's very difficult for the members of the family, and our hearts go out to obviously the family and what's occurred here this morning, but also very distressing for members of Victoria Police and in the emergency services given the circumstances of what's occurred.
And Nicole, a horrible scene to wake up to there. How are neighbours reacting?
Look, there's been tears on the street here this morning, both among the neighbours but also the authorities here on the scene. We've heard neighbours describe the fire as so bright they thought that the sun had come up early. One neighbour I spoke to earlier said that when they came around the corner behind us late last night, or probably early this morning really, they saw the father outside screaming about his children still inside the house. Others said that, they woken with the commotion on the street and have shared, shown us photos and videos of just how bright and how huge this fire was. One family said that, they ended up leaving their home scared that it might spread into their home. But let's take a listen to one of the neighbours.
Actually, it's like a whole house. It's like a bonfire of sort of thing. Whole house was fire. It was, the roof was collapsing, and there was, some sort of collapsing noises and all those stuff. All the neighbours on there, and I think the parents were shouting, but they were not able to go in.
Now, in a situation where children are involved, people are really keen to know exactly what happened, and I think one of the things that people really want to know and to believe is that there was nothing untoward involved in this fire. So arson squad detectives are inside today, they're investigating. We understand that some of the bodies of the children are still inside as well, so they'll come out during the day, and we're expecting at some point today we might learn whether or not the firefighters and fire investigators are treating this as suspicious or not, Amy.
Well, there you go. Whether or not the fire was treated as suspicious, but you know what? That is a tragedy. When things like that happen out in the suburban houses, it is very dangerous because the houses are so close by as well. So I think the firefighters did the best they could, but as they mentioned, by the time they had got there, the roof had actually collapsed with the tiles falling in. So that compromised the situation. They could not come and actually investigate it straight away. So that is sort of a bit of a concern there. So we'll keep you updated. Maybe by tomorrow we will get some more reports coming out, and we'll keep following that story. Well, right now, the future of air travel. Well, of course, we know that every Thursday we have the travel updates with Tanvi Goyal of Oz India Travels. But what is the future going to be like after this pandemic? What new laws might come in? What would be the future of planes? Would there be some modifications made to the planes, the way we fly? Here's a take at the report. Maybe cleaner air travel.
This airport in the Cotswolds is home to dozens of gas-guzzling planes grounded by the pandemic. Some will never return to service, others will soon be back in the sky burning fossil fuels again. But in a nearby hangar, the search for a greener way of flying is underway. This hydrogen plane could be taking paying passengers within 3 years.
The technology we've got today works, so there's no reason why you have to wait to 2030, 2040, 2050.
ZeroAvia's first attempt, a 6-seater hydrogen fuel cell plane, was considered a huge success until it crashed. Backed by the UK government, the aviation firm says it's learnt from the accident and is now preparing to install hydrogen gas tanks in this regional airliner.
Recombining hydrogen and oxygen together to produce DC current, and the only byproduct is water.
The fuel's produced on site through electrolysis.
And you just fill the plane up with this?
Yes, yeah.
But to be truly carbon zero, that process of splitting hydrogen and oxygen from water needs to be driven by renewable power.
In Australia, with all the solar resources, there can be quite a bit of renewable power generation generated very close to the airports.
Once converted, this 19-seater should have a range of about 500 nautical miles. So technically speaking, you could get from Sydney to Melbourne. And in as little as 5 years, this project's hoping to have a commercially viable 90-seater aircraft in the sky.
One of the world's biggest aircraft manufacturers, Airbus, is planning to burn hydrogen in its future planes, but not until 2035 at the earliest. In the meantime, experts say there should be more investment in existing solutions, like e-kerosene, a cleaner synthetic fuel which has already been successfully tested.
That's the only solution that we have in the next decade to decarbonise those flights.
This team's betting their solution will get off the ground.
It sounds easy, but it isn't.
Climate-conscious travellers can only hope they succeed. Nick Dole, ABC News, Kemble.
And wouldn't that be wonderful? But as we know, everything has a consequence. You start, energy. As soon as energy comes into equation, energy needs to be generated. And it is generated by some reaction, some other thing. So, and every action has an opposite and equal reaction, as they say. So, it will be interesting to see as that other debate we were having the other day on solar power. Well, of course, there is abundance of it, but, overuse of that will too have some consequences if, studies have not been done well. Well, here's that speech from Grace Tame at a former school in
The school where the abuse happened has been reaching out to us for a couple of years.
When I started at St Michael's Collegiate School,
I wanted to make sure that she knew that I was incredibly sorry for what had happened here at Collegiate, and I wanted her to know that we were ready and willing to support her in any way we could. Let's give Grace a very warm welcome.
The new principal actually invited me to go and speak to the senior students and some of the staff as well, many of whom were there during my time.
We all know why I'm uneasy, and it has nothing to do with anybody in this room. He's been in here though, in this very hall.
She got to speak to the girls and say her truth about what happened. She was very candid.
I am one of at least 5 girls who were targeted, conditioned and exploited here, some of whose experiences of abuse were already known to the school before I was even born.
It's completely unacceptable that this abuse was allowed to happen. We can't move on, I don't think, until we know the full extent of the history. So I really would like any former students who understandably have found it difficult to come forward to know that they can come forward.
I've made peace with the school because as someone who has been groomed, I know how deeply confusing and stupefying it is.
All I knew is
a lot of people in the system were used by this man.
I came back actually after.
It was quite overwhelming. She was looking out at a sea of students in the same uniform that she used to wear, and seeing staff members that she used to know as her teachers. She just demonstrated extraordinary bravery.
And for all that I lost here, I have gained it all and more in return simply by being able to share in this moment with you. I never got...
What a powerful speech, and what emotional scenes there, reliving that tragedy and being in that same room there and addressing students who are now wearing the same uniform that she wore in those days. So it is hopefully that they get to the bottom of this matter. It is rather disturbing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now we have a short segment for today. We get back to the full segment from tomorrow when we have the 2 segments. The Daily India report will be coming on as well. Until that time, it's goodbye from me. Tomorrow we will have the updated events and functions that are happening, and we'll try and bring to you some glimpses of the functions and events that took place in the whole of the weekend. Until that time, it's goodbye from me.